American patriots, this is a plea. As Reagan once said, we are one generation away from our freedoms being extinct. Fast forward to today, I believe we are one election away from our freedoms being extinct. We can no longer be complacent. We must stand up and fight for America First conservatives at all levels of politics. I will refuse to be the generation to explain to my kid what freedom was like. Decades of damage has been done. It's our time. It's our country. It's our freedoms. You are listening to the Light of Liberty podcast. Hello, freedom lovers, and welcome to the Light of Liberty podcast. On today's show, we have a very special guest. He's a family man. He has served this country as a Marine and in the National Guard. And most of all, I believe this man's a fierce warrior. As Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And this man could be on his way to the lion's den in the Washington swamp. Congressional candidate for Pennsylvania's 4th District. Welcome to the show, Daniel Burton.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Dan. So first and foremost, Dan, thank you for everything you've done, your service to this country. We appreciate it here at the Light of Liberty.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for your service. I think right now when we see what's going on in this world, the folks that are stepping up, the warriors that are truly out there trying to get the truth out there and speak it, those are the ones we need to thank for their service right now, because we are in a situation where we find ourselves fighting for our freedom right now. Yeah. Absolutely. So we're thanking each other for our service.
We are all in this together.
We are trying to save our country more so now than ever before. So
yeah, I truly believe that, and that's why we have you on the show, and that's what we're about. We're about spreading that truth and coming together and getting to it and getting at it. So speaking of that, let's get right at it. So it's crazy times in this country right now. It's pretty heated. It's heated in Pennsylvania right now with the primaries just coming up. So why run? Why now, Dan?
That is a super loaded question, sir.
We'll start a little easy for
why
you.
Run? I guess we'll start with why run. So I saw what happened in the 2020 election. I knew in our gut, like everybody else, of some common sense that something wasn't right with that election and still isn't right. And we need to do something about that. So I've been working as closely with as many groups as I can to try to get that truth out there. But I saw what happened there. I saw what was going on in our schools, with my kids' school when they were home during the pandemic, the curriculum they were bringing home. And then we started a group out here that just started really diving in and investigating. We found pornography in our school. This is in a mostly conservative school district, I would say, a Republican school district. And we're still finding these pornographic books and CRT and everything else in our school. As much as they want to deny it, we found it, presented it. Yeah. And then August came around and I found myself being more angry than I've been in a long, long time. And that was Afghanistan. Our treasonous actions, because there's no other way to explain why we'd leave $85 billion worth of equipment in a country that doesn't like us. We leave our allies behind. They're still, they don't have any idea how many Americans are still there. We don't have any idea how many are green carded allies. We don't have any idea in Afghanistan. So that absolutely was a punch to the stomach to myself and probably every other single veteran that had brothers and sisters that went there. And I decided, not today, Satan, you are not going to take my country from me. And then we just see all of the stuff that is going on. I mean, we see the pumps, we see inflation, their southern border. It is absolutely a plan of attack against our sovereign liberties. And somebody's got to step up and seek and speak the truth. And I felt called to do this. I felt called to be the warrior I was created to be my entire life. Of all of my experiences across this great nation and across this great state came to a point, and I'm just like, this is what I was created for. This is what I need to do. I need to go represent the people of Pennsylvania, of Montgomery and Berks County, and go fight for our liberties and freedoms, because they're being stripped every single day through bad policy, through overspending, through invasion of our southern border, through censorship of our speech, through fraudulent elections. I mean, the list goes on and on, gentlemen. You understand, I'm preaching to the choir here, but all of these things just created that fire of Jeremiah within my bones that I just needed to step up and do something and be the tip of the spear that I was created to be. But as you've heard me say many times, we need to do this together, not just me. And there are many parts of that spear, and you guys are part of it. And our first ladies, our wives are a large part of that. And this grassroots groups across this state that are stepping up right now. We are taking the establishment on right now. That's our biggest opponent right now, which is crazy.
Right. We have to fight from within right now.
It is. We are fighting our own. It is.
It's unheard of. I mean, in our country, I mean, we see this in other countries, and it's front and center in our country right now. You know, and the message you're bringing, just when I heard you talking a couple weeks ago, everything you were saying, it appealed to me. It's what I wanted to hear, what I wanted to say. And talking to you afterwards, you carry yourself the same way on stage, talking to a group as you do talking to an individual person. I really appreciated that. And that's why, I got on board with you, and you are who I want to see represent me down in Washington.
Well, thank you, sir. I'll say I'm a warrior, and you can have a warrior, can have a servant. I'm a servant-minded person. I love just serving people. That's where I gain my energy from. I literally, when I'm out meeting people or helping people, that's when I start gaining energy. And that's how I've been my entire life. But so you can be a warrior, you can be a servant, but you can't be a warrior without being a servant. And I love this country. I love God, and what we're supposed to do is love others, right? Yeah. And how I love others, and my love language is serving and helping. And it's very hard to explain, but I'm the guy that if you're broke down on the side of the road, I'm the one that you're hoping and praying for. And this big Sasquatch guy gets out of his car and you're like, oh, and then I come over and I'll help you. And it doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter where I'm from. I just want to help and serve.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need more people like you, especially down in Washington, or more people like you in Harrisburg, specifically, since we're all stationed here in Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of information. On this show, we talk about information war zone here. And there's so much just this back and forth of misinformation and what's correct and what's not. And we have to kind of drive straight through that storm to really do our research and find that information. And it has divided this country straight down the middle, it seems like, for this past at least 2 to 6 years of
on purpose.
This last 2 years is the peak, I hope.
On purpose. So where I'm alluding to is we want to push candidates kind of like yourself, the America First minded, family person, conservative, patriot, that values the foundation of this country and what it was made on, and to take that down to Washington and really dig out those swamp monsters and transition this country and rewrite this ship and turn it around. And that's why we have you on the show, to spread your message heading forward here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, the information.
Go ahead. No, let's go ahead.
I was going to say the information that goes around how we're eating our own from a Republican standpoint right now is unbelievably sad. And I said establishment. There's America first and there's establishment first folks out there right now. Mm-hmm. And you know who they are because they're the ones that are destroying each other. They're the ones that are out there, instead of speaking their message and what they want to fight for and how they want to serve, they're destroying the other candidates to the best of their ability, whether it's half truths, partial truths, or even full truths. You can't even get to the meat of it anymore. And we're destroying each other, and it's disgusting. We're coming in. We've had warriors that have been, and I'm one, right? But we have other warrior candidates out there that have been fighting for us. I'm talking about in the gubernatorial race. I'm talking about in the senatorial race. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the lieutenant governor race. There's some folks out there. These folks have been literally out there communicating what is going on within this country for the last couple years. And if you look back at my other, you can look back. I've had videos for the last year and a half battling my school board, my thoughts on where we're at, the things that I've been doing. But we're turning against these warriors. We're turning against, whether you like Kathy Barnett or not. What's happening to her right now is just disgusting. They piece together videos of different times to make it to create a narrative that destroys somebody who's trying to step up and fight for this country. And it's happened against all of them. I'm not saying it's just against Kathy, but they're doing the same thing against McCormick. They're doing the same thing against Oz. The worst thing that we're seeing right now is what we're seeing the establishment do against Doug Mastriano. And whether you like Doug or not, he's been fighting for this country for decades, if you count his military service.
Well, you can't rule out his military service.
Right. But, okay. So I'm not going to rule that out. But during the pandemic, what politician anywhere in this country have you seen that every night was getting on and telling the American people what was legal, what was constitutional, what was not, what's going on here, what's going on everywhere else? And then the establishment goes, wait a minute, this guy is out there telling the truth.
Yeah.
He's really growing people. We can't have people stand up. And it's disgusting. Right now, what we see, and this is going to be controversial, but right now we see a Republican Party. I can't tell who I'm more angry at, the establishment Republicans or the Democrats. The Democrats are at least telling us what they're doing. I mean, their game plan is out there. I mean, you could just read the Communist Manifesto and you see exactly what they're doing right now. Yep. And, oh my goodness, Dan just called the Democrats communists. Yes, I did.
We've done that too.
I did, because if I had it in front of me, I'd read the 10 facets of the Communist Manifesto, and they are doing exactly every single one. So let's get past that. Stop. Don't lie to me. Don't tell me that's not true. It's absolutely true. Not you guys, but anybody who wants to, troll me on here, go read it and then come back to me and tell me where they're not following the Communist Manifesto. Okay?
Me and Josh were just talking about the other day, when you bring up about the establishment not supporting Doug. And yet we looked at Shapiro's latest hit video that came out against Doug, and we both agree here that was an endorsement for Doug. Everything he was saying Shapiro was saying in his video is exactly what Doug is running on, and we support that. It's like, so we kind of feel the Democrats are doing more for Doug than the Republicans are.
Right?
I think we have more Democrats than the Democrats want to admit that like Doug.
Yeah.
I'm out door knocking and I'm meeting people and they're like, well, we're Democrat. We don't have anything in common. They're at least, humble. They're not slamming the door in my face.
Yeah.
And I say, wait a minute. Hold on. Can I just ask you a question? Because I'm just trying to serve all Americans. This is not a Republican Democrat thing. When I get to office, I will be serving you as well. So can I just ask you a couple questions? Sure. Okay. Do you love America? Well, of course I do. Okay, great. All right. Do you like mandates and stuff? Do you like what was been happening, that your liberties being taken away? No, of course not. Okay. So you love America. You don't like mandates and you don't like overruled by the government. I'm pretty sure we have everything that's needed in common right now, because everything else we can disagree on things, because disagreeing on things is what got us to the moon. Okay. Disagreeing on things is what keeps each other accountable. Now, when we don't talk to each other and we walk away when we have a disagreement, or it creates a divide, which the enemy wants. I'm not even going to say the Democrats, which the enemy, the PR enemy, the evil enemy we have wants us not to talk to each other. So they create these rifts of division so that we don't come together, at least with some kind of conversation. We can't even talk to each other anymore. That's when that is when a country divided upon itself cannot stand, because we won't even talk to each other, and that's when we know that it is evil parting our human ways of just being able to communicate with each other. And we see it everywhere. And so when back to my point about Doug, we even just saw these. So we see these grassroots joining together, having a common message, wanting to stand for their country. And even the Republicans are going, well, if we don't fall in line, if we don't do across the aisle stuff, then we won't be able to hold our seats. So Doug can't win in the fall because he doesn't float both ways enough. He doesn't agree with the other side enough. So we'll never get the vote in Philadelphia. Blah 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 blah. And I think that's what people are tired of. Yeah. They're tired of this mishmash. They're tired of the swamp. And so if you want a definition of the swamp, it's murky, it's dirty. You don't really know where the bottom is. You don't know where the top is because it's so dirty and gross. It stinks, right? And then I equate that to, you ask these people every speech I go to, and you guys have seen this too. How do we know, Dan, that you're not going to change when you get to Washington, D.C.? The question is easy. And I can just tell you, well, I'm just not going to. Well, that's not the base of it. The base of it is, if I'm out here telling you exactly where I stand, exactly what I stand for, you and I, we might not agree on everything either. We may not. And that's okay. It's probably better that way, because if I told you 100% of what you liked, then I'm probably lying to you.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But so when I walk into these meetings and people are like, Dan, there's no way you're going to win Montgomery County because you're too conservative. You need to make sure that you float the line a little bit because you don't want to turn voters off. And my point is, when I come out and I just tell people where I stand, and then I say, hey, it's okay not to agree with me all the time, but you're going to know where I stand. And so I'm not coming to you and lying to you. And then you wonder when I get to DC why I changed. I didn't change. I'm the guy that you voted for. I just lied to you to get your vote. And that's the difference. That's what the swamp is. Yeah, and that's why the Republicans don't like it. And when Doug is out there telling you exactly where he stands, and he tells you to go walk as free people, like your sign behind you says, and he tells you, and then all these people are like, yeah, I can say no, because it is we, the people, that run this country. It scares the bejeepers out of the Republicans and the Democrats because they are a uniparty, because they're all just trying to control their own fiefdoms. Oh, I'm an R plus 30 district. I'll never lose. Or I'm a D plus 25 district. It's never winnable by a Democrat or by a Republican. And then we just keep moving along like it's just what it is. That's just how it is. And that's the problem we have today, because nobody's making an actual stance, including most of the opponents on through the ticket across the state, through these endorsements that these committees are throwing up. And they're just doing it because that's their person in line or the next person's turn. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
And I think like candidates like yourself and Doug Mastriano are popular among the grassroots movement. They're relatable. They're the change that we want to see. And we're tired of the establishment. We're tired. When Trump was in office, he really showed what the swamp was, right? And it really created this divide, but it created the people saw this now. So we know that the swamp's there. We know the establishment. And even in the last week, the Republican primary, we're seeing the swamp monsters come out now. Like you alluded to, Kathy Barnett being attacked and Doug Mastriano being attacked. And the people are tired of it. And that's why...
I've been attacked.
And that's and you're being
attacked.
I'll
address that in a second too with you guys. So
it's creating these grassroots movement, and these are the movements that are going to change this country for the good. Mm-hmm. And that's why we cannot take our foot off the pedal.
And when you talk about the establishment saying you can't say who you are, what you believe in, and risk offending the other side or the middle ground, look at the current administration that's taking hold of our state. I don't agree with anything they're doing. They don't have any of my values. They don't support me in one way, yet they're still in power. So it just shows to prove anybody can do. You can do what you're set out to do. You hold your values close to your heart, and then you just keep running. And when you talk your message and stuff, people believe. I believe what you're saying. I plan to hold you accountable. When you're
expect
down
any
there,
different.
I know you said before your phone number is going to stay the same when you're down there. So you're not hiding from the people to be able to reach out and talk to you.
How can you serve somebody if you're hiding from them?
Yeah.
If I gain my energy, listen, this would be the greatest job in the world, in my opinion, because I get to serve people every single day. I get to help them. Hey, I need help getting my passport. Hey, I need help doing this. That's the simple stuff your offices as federal offices get. And then they're asking what's going on with this bill? Why didn't you vote for it? Why did you vote for it? Why? Those are the things that I love talking to people, and I love serving them. And so that's where we're at. And I wanted to go back to your establishment thing, and you brought up Trump. I didn't like everything Trump said.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't like everything he did. But guess what? The reason why he called out the swamp for what it is because he told you exactly what he stood for. He told you exactly what he was going to do. And this is all before he became president. Mm-hmm. And guess what? He didn't change who he was when he got down there. And all of his bad words and his mean tweets, he was doing that. He's been doing that forever, right? He didn't change who he was. And so if the only thing you got on him is he says some bad words and he says some mean tweets, but okay, he did what he was going to do. Now, there's some other things that he did that I'm not really happy with. I'm not really happy with some of the endorsements lately.
Yeah, he's continuing to do bad things that we don't agree with.
Yeah, right.
but I think he still has at heart America first.
Right, exactly. And so that's my point about you want to find the perfect candidate. Well, the only thing you're going to find perfect right now is somebody that doesn't stand for anything, who's kind of milquetoast, so you don't know where they stand on the real issues. And so they're just going to stand on some simple stuff so that you don't have any questions about something simple. Oh, I'm America first. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm pro-life.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. There aren't many Republicans that aren't pro-life.
Yeah. The main talking points, right?
Yeah. It's just, exactly.
You can tell when people are reading from a script and saying those phrases, but you can also tell when somebody believes in what they're saying.
Right. And when somebody actually takes it to the step further, I'm America first, and this is why and what I stand for, then you don't have a question on whether America first or not, or if they're pro-life or not. You don't have to have those questions, and then they don't get answered when you're like, well, they're pro-life, they're pro-American, they're this, they're that, they didn't vote for Act 77, or they whatever, okay? And then you vote them in, and then you find out. It's like, just vote for the bill and then read it afterwards. The folks that are out there telling you exactly where they stand on everything, you don't have any questions for where they're going to stand later. And then you won't have the questions, why did they change when they get there? And that's what I think people are missing. And that is where grassroots are. And that is why the establishment and the Democrats don't like that, because then they lose their power, because they're like, well, we've been skirting around the truth for so many years. We can't have anybody down here telling the truth. I've been told straight to my face, when asked what I was going to do if I got voted into Congress. And this is by other people in politics in our house. Okay. Dan, my answer is, I'm going to go down to the House floor and I'm going to seek and speak the truth. I'm going to speak the truth on the House floor, and it will shine light into the darkness. Whoa, Dan. You're not going to make a lot of friends doing that. I take that as a challenge. It's like telling a Marine not to take a hill. Men, it's going to be a tough fight, but you know what? Game on. Let's go, baby.
Yeah,
and
right.
So,
and you bring up pro-life in your talks here, and big in the news lately is this Roe versus Wade leak at the Supreme Court, right? Which is unheard of right now, and it's really creating even this more divide of this country, because it's shedding more light on this issue, right? So
on purpose.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Why was this done, or do you think this was done on purpose? Was the timing dictated earlier, or what's the consequences of this on both sides, on the leaking side, the Supreme Court side, and what it's going to do to America and society in general?
So first off, let's set the foundation of what Roe versus Wade actually was in the first place. Roe versus Wade 50 years ago or 49 years ago, so the trolls don't say I'm lying. Roe versus Wade, okay, was illegal from the beginning.
Yeah.
It was, stepping out of legislative, judicial, and executive branches, right? The judicial branch is not supposed to make law.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Supreme Court made law unconstitutionally, which is illegal. Okay. But they tried to say that it was federally okay and you cannot make abortion illegal across the states. So basically, it's almost a communistic action if you think about it. The state is dictating law to everyone in the country. Okay. And we allowed judges to do that. So the reversal of Roe versus Wade, or the leak, okay, because we haven't seen the reversal yet, so I'm praying that we still will have that reversal, was giving the power back to the people. It is not about abortion. It is about correcting a mistake or an illegal action that was done 50 years ago. So it gives the power back to the states. So as all of these Democrats and these people are up there, you're taking away our freedoms. No, they just gave you freedoms back that you haven't had for 50 years.
Right.
And you're again spinning it that we're anti-pro-choice, we're anti-this, we're anti-that. No, we're pro-freedom. And so if you, whether you think abortion is legal or evil or not, okay, what the Supreme Court is doing, or they say they're doing with this leak, because again, I'm praying that it actually comes out that this stands. What they're saying is, we're giving it back to the states and their right to vote on it and their freedom to do what the state should do, which is how it's supposed to be. Okay. Always. It's supposed to be. So again, we're telling the federal government, we want election integrity. We want this, we want that. That's up to the states.
Yeah.
It's not up to so when I go to, I'm fighting for election, against these election fraud and everything here.
Oh, we
it's
are
not
too.
It's not a federal fight. That's a citizen fight. Okay. I just have a candidate title after my citizen, right? I am just going to fight this as a citizen, just like I'm fighting against the local school boards, just like I'm doing all of that as a citizen. But we, the people, are in command. We can't rely on these elected officials. If they're really going to be servants, then they're supposed to be the bottom of your shoe, not some high and mighty title, and not some high and mighty person who, oh, please just do this for me. And, no offense, Trump. We shouldn't be praying to Almighty Trump to come save us. It is our duty to do this. And you're starting to see people wake up.
Yeah.
You're seeing people wake up, and that's starting at the grassroots. And that's what's scaring the rhinos and the dinos and everybody else, the establishment. And that's why you're seeing that far, far, far left really ramping up. They're not even hiding their game plan now. They're just doing it. Okay. And so Roe versus Wade was illegal in the beginning. From the first place, it took our freedoms away from us. It took our state's freedoms away from us. If you want a state that's okay with abortion, then move to California and see how that works out for you, because their Senate just voted to okay abortion at 28 days after birth.
Yeah. Last time I checked, that's
you want to know where I stand? I am pro-life at conception.
Yeah, that's when life starts.
That is when life starts. And here's what I mean by that. If we went to, here's for my other trolls, trust the science. If we take a sample from Mars back to here and we find a microbial bacterium, okay, I'm not a geneticist, so I don't, whatever, scientist, the smallest of life, one cell creature, a bacteria, we would say that there is life on Mars. We would call it a Martian. But we have something that is growing in a woman's body that is a miracle of life. That is how all life is started. And we don't want to call it life. We want to call it women's health or women's choice.
We're a clump of cells.
And then we want to create the narrative. Well, what about incest? And what about rape? And what about the life of the mother? I understand all that. Those would be very, very hard decisions. And I'm not going to make those decisions for other people. I'm just going to tell you where I stand on those decisions. And I believe that is life. And I believe that if you take that life, whether it started from a criminal act or not, that is still killing life. And so that's where I stand. And then again, I'm told, Dan, you can't have that stance. You'll never win against it. No, at least you know where I stand. I'm not trying to take your rights. And Roe versus Wade is trying to give you rights. And if you want those, I don't call them rights, but if you want that decision, then go somewhere where it's okay. But people look at us and we're like, well, we need to be more like Europe. Europe has stronger stances against abortion than we do.
Yeah.
Just look it up. Britain, everywhere, all these other places, but we're okay with the enemy being evil. I mean, just look, we had people dying in the beginning of this pandemic because they couldn't get needed surgeries, getting cysts removed from kidneys. I've had people come to me crying and saying, this needs to end. My son passed away because he had a growth on his kidney and he couldn't get surgery. But if he needed an abortion, he was allowed to go into the hospital. But because he had this, it wasn't something. He died later because he didn't have the surgery he needed.
There's still doctors turning people away, for not wearing a mask, getting removed from organ transplant, list.
Exactly. Across this country still, okay, kids not being able to because they didn't get a shot. Yeah. Okay. We have Kamala Harris saying, our body, our choice, you're taking the rights and freedoms. Who are they to tell us what to do with our body? I hope that's a good impersonation. What to do with our body. But the week before, they're mandating you put something in your body. Right? That is
definition of insanity.
Hypocrisy.
That is rape. Yeah. Right? And so I get fired up. You know where I stand, gentlemen. You know where I stand with this stuff. But it is absolutely evil. Evil.
Well, fire like that is what we need to see on the floor. I mean, we looked at last week, Congressman from Texas, Chip Roy. There's video of him on the floor, irate, mad as hell about this $40 billion package to Ukraine again this week. And he was letting them know that. And he's talking about how they get this bill in the afternoon and are supposed to be deciding on that right away.
Yeah,
when they don't even get a chance to look through it.
Yeah, and I think only 57 Republicans said nay to that. So
your passion, your passion like that, we need that outcry.
Right. Can I talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Why are we blindly spending? I mean, they're just tossing around. It's like, oh, here's $40.
Yeah. No. $40 billion.
$40 billion. I'm going to put this into perspective for a second here. Okay. These people have no clue. First off, that $40 billion is worth nothing because all we keep doing is printing money. Okay. The Federal Reserve is not federal whatsoever. It's a privately held bank that prints our money for us, or the Treasury prints the money, but they're the ones that say, okay, go print money. Trillions of dollars. The market is changing right now. We saw the market go up because we were just dumping trillions of dollars into the market from the Fed. Okay. Which is illegal. Okay. This whole thing is illegal. All right. But let's look at this $40 billion. First, let's go back to my earlier comment about the $85 billion of equipment we left in Afghanistan. So think about that for a second. $85 billion worth of equipment. Interesting. So now we have China inventorying our equipment there, getting our drones. Oh, wait, drones right near. Oh, okay. They're getting our drones. They're getting our weapons. I was just being a little bit facetious there. Right. All of these weapons are going around. We see the parades of our enemies driving our AMRAPs and armored vehicles around. We see our helicopters. No, we disarmed our helicopters. Meanwhile, we see our helicopters flying around with people hanging from their necks on the bottom of them. Okay. We left biometric data. People are getting pulled out into the streets and slaughtered in front of their families because they were sympathizers of us. Yeah. So we have created this huge, massive black hole of terroristic thoughts towards America. Hate America. So ISIS hated America. Now every citizen in Afghanistan hates America because they just saw their families slaughtered in the streets. So that's $85 billion worth of equipment being used against us and them. And we saw 13 Marines and a Devil Doc die.
Let me add one thing to that too. Encrypted communications equipment too we left there.
Yes.
So anybody can listen in on us.
We left, how many aircraft did we leave? Fighter aircraft, ground-to-air missiles. We left sniper rifles, night vision. We left the gambit. I mean, we don't allow the American citizen to buy your tool of freedom that's sitting behind you. We want to limit that. But we left machine guns, millions of rounds of ammunition. We just gave them the mother load. So that's
we arm other countries more than, and they don't want us to be armed.
Right.
How much did we arm Ukraine?
It gets better. So yeah, Biden says we're going to help Ukraine by supplying them small arms. Does anybody understand the lunacy in all this? So I'm going to part this together. So $85 billion there. We're going $40 billion here with a total of like 53 or 58 billion. Nobody's even keeping track anymore. Nobody even straight back to our current politicians, because we know they're on the boards of all these companies over there, and it's a disaster. Okay. So we see all this money going over there. Hey, but not to worry, guys, not to worry. The Clinton Foundation is open back in Ukraine now, because we saw how good they did.
Oh, yeah.
We saw how good they did with Haiti and all of their trafficking. I mean, moving of money and goods. So now they're going to be in Ukraine. So that's great. Everybody rest easy, because the Clinton Foundation is doing great over in Ukraine. Russia's, and I heard this, and I'll give credit to the Blaze for this and to Glenn Beck. Russia's defense, their entire amount of defense budget every year is somewhere around $65 billion. Russia's defense budget, their military defense budget, is $65 billion a year. Russia's. We left $85 billion in one swoop in Afghanistan of people that hate us. And we're giving 53 some billion to Ukraine. That is 3/4 of the entire defense budget of Russia. Do we not see what is happening here? Meanwhile, we have baby food formula shortages here in Pennsylvania, in the United States. We have diesel fuel that runs this country close to $7 a gallon. We have our borders being invaded, and we're not going to have fertilizer for our crops in the fall. You want to talk about, we have less farmland today than we've ever had in the history of our country, because BlackRock and Bill Gates and the government are buying up all this property, and they're not farming it. They're using it for the new monetary system, the carbon credit through green initiatives. Okay. Yeah. And now we're not going to allow fertilizer here. And they're telling us to use manure. That's the plan from Psaki. Well, we'll just use manure. Well, guess what? Bill Gates and everybody else, they've been cutting down on our livestock for the last, so our livestock is less than it's ever been, and we don't have enough manure. The problem is manure doesn't create the same yield. So again, we're not putting money into this country to make more baby formula. Now, I don't agree with masks, but what Trump did was he converted a Kodak plant into a mask making plant, because that's what we thought we needed. Right. Okay, great. We did something. We didn't know what was going on. We stepped up as leaders and we did the American thing. We took to ourselves and we did it. So we're saying that we're going to have food shortages. Biden's even saying we're going to have food shortages like we've never seen before. Okay. And nobody's listening. Nobody's paying attention. Our current media is not saying anything. They want it, right? And then we're going to blame Ukraine and we're going to blame Russia, because they're not giving us the fertilizer. We can make our own fertilizer here. We can get our own gas. We can get our own oil. We can get our own coal. We can get our own nuclear power. We can get everything we want here, but we're not doing it. We're shutting it down. We're tapping in. I'm sorry, guys. We're
getting away from being self-sufficient.
So,
Before you get too far away, I was just talking to a farmer yesterday, and this farmer, he's planting corn right now. His end goal at the end of the season, he is just hoping, if everything goes right, to break even. It's like, then why even put all this work in?
His yield won't be there. Because his yield won't be there because he doesn't have the fertilizer.
Yeah,
we don't have a yield.
We're too busy worrying about borders 6,000 miles away and not worried about what's going on right here.
He got fertilizer, but his cost of the fertilizer tripled.
That's true. And the yield that we're going to see, so we have farmers that aren't willing to, because they're not sure if they're going to get the yield, so they can't make an investment. Because let's face it, we have kept farmers. If you lived in a farming family, it's like month to month. Yeah. It's not like, hey, we got lots of money. It's not like Yellowstone where they got millions of dollars floating around. Okay, this is real world stuff here. Farmers go, they got equipment. Those tractors that you see driving around, they're $400,000 for that combine. Oh yeah. Okay. So that combine that you see out in the fields and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. Corn. All right. I'm just going to go to the store and buy food because that's where food comes from. That's not. These farmers need to pay bills just like everybody else. They need a budget and they run on a tight ship. And now when their fertilizer and fuel is up 3 times, they're afraid to even plant crops because they're not going to get the same yield because they're not getting the fertilizer. And we're not doing it here. We're sending money to Ukraine instead of putting fertilizer plants in the United States. We're We now have Bill Gates that says, you know what, we got breast milk with a Q. It's a biologically created some kind of fake baby formula. That's super timing, I'm guessing, right? We have one of the largest baby formula plants closed because of fears since January, and we're not letting them open up. The FDA won't. It is,
and who controls the FDA?
So all these 3-letter agencies, it is. I can go for a long time here, guys, because you guys see it, and we're preaching to the choir and the folks. I hope that somebody is listening.
People need to wake up and understand.
Like, wait, that's happening. Right.
Farmers are some of our most essential people in this country. They feed us. They feed other nations. They are some of the strongest workers in this country. It's
somewhere around 25% of our economy in Berks and Montgomery County. Somewhere around 25 to 30% of our economy is agriculture.
And they're some of the strongest people in faith also, because they have to have faith that it's going to, they'll get rain, not too much rain, it'll be dry enough to plant, but not too dry that they can't plant. I mean, talk about somebody who needs to have faith. It's a farmer.
Yeah, and that's all part of the America First agenda. We gotta bring it back to America. We got to bring that American dream back to life.
American values.
Yeah, and those American values, and that's what's important. We got to stop worrying about other countries. We got to start worrying about our borders. We got to invasion at our southern border right now that the mainstream media just denies, right? And like you said, the baby food formula food shortages, and we preach here about staying prepared and staying connected with local communities, but it's just insane right now what's going on, and mainstream media is no help at all.
They never will be.
Don't get me wrong, we need the media. The First Amendment and the media is what should be keeping us in line. But unfortunately, the media has been bought out by these evildoers, these evil planners.
Entertainment industries.
Yeah. Nobody's talking about the massive drought that we have across our country right now either.
Mm-hmm.
The aqueducts or the aquifers under the ground, they're running dry because we're not doing the right things at the surface. And we're going to have a world of hurt right now. Instead of bringing, we're talking about America First. When we truly think about this, when Trump came in with America First, what did he do? He deregulated a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We cut down on taxes. We brought business back, but it also brought competition because middle class runs this country, right? The small business, I should say, runs this country, or at least it should. And when you have small business coming out and creating a competitive market, it makes everybody better. Okay. Everybody's then working. We're not regulating people out of business. We're allowing capitalism to do what it does best. That is be ingenuitive. That is to be competitive. That is to be righteous and service oriented, because then you're going to gain more customers. It helps us grow our economy. When you throw more regulation on and more taxes, it destroys it. And that's exactly what we saw as soon as Biden started with his pen. Okay. And so we look at all of these things, and what I'm getting at is let's bring fertilizer back here. Let's start making fertilizer back here, because right now we know where the world is at. I mean, the biggest killer of people in the world right now is starvation, still today. And now we're talking about food shortages coming up the likes of which we've never seen. That's from Biden's lips. Okay. So we're not going to grow our own stuff here, but we're the breadbasket. We are the most giving country in this world because we are the most blessed, in my opinion. And now we're going to find ourselves hard on food as a nation, as communities. Are we going to be able to feed the rest of the world? We're going to see millions of people die of starvation this year as normal, but we're going to see it exponentially go up because we're not taking care of ourselves first to be able to take care of other people. When you're sitting in a plane, what do they tell you to do? Put your mask on first so that you can help the person sitting next to you. Because if you're both suffocating, we're all done. And right now they're trying to suffocate us out. Evil is suffocating our country so that we can't help the rest of the world. And we will see what Bill Gates wants, 30 to 40% less population.
Yeah.
And so what do we do about it? We stand up together and we fight about it, and we seek and speak the truth. And the good news is, like you guys said, the prepping and these other things, how America survives is by knowing who your neighbors are. And if we're short on food, we help our neighbors, our small communities, and my wife says, Dan, we really need to make sure our community is strong. And I say, Well, I'm the Marine that's going right to the heart of the beast, because we want our community strong, but we can't have this tentacled beast out there fighting against us every step of the way. And I'm driving my spear right through the heart of it. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm just following the doors that the Lord is opening up.
Yeah.
But all of your listeners know, they feel that voice inside of them. They know what's coming. And we need to make sure we're strong as communities and as Americans. This division that's being driven against us, we go into this thing divided like we are right now, it's going to be a lot uglier. Yeah. It's going to be a lot uglier.
So,
and we got to make sure we're prepared for that.
Yeah. So you take that warrior spirit down to Washington. What's first business on your priority?
So the first, this is not going to make a lot of establishment folks happy, but everybody asks me, well, what are you going to do? Who are you going to vote for Speaker of the House? Well, I know who I'm not going to be voting for. And, so maybe they're going to come after me now even more, but I don't think the folks that we have in current leadership are the ones ready to step up and be, because it's just going to be the same old. And I'm talking like your McCarthy's and your McConnells and all these other folks. I know I'm not an idiot, guys. I know they're two different people, two different houses. Okay. I'm just drawing a broadsword across our current establishment, but I don't know who I'm going to vote for Speaker of the House, but we need somebody that's actually going to stand for this country, not go along to get along. And, so that's obviously the first. When you're in federal,
we're judging your core values.
Right.
Just we're listening to you. Listeners are listening to you, and they get a feeling for who you are and what your values are. So it gives me confidence that when you're down there, I know the kind of person you're going to be looking for Speaker of the House to vote for. So, and I trust in that. I have to have faith that that's going to be carried through down there.
So people have asked me, Dan, you can't do things on your own. Well, I have an argument to that, but I understand where they're getting at, right? I mean, nobody thought David could do anything on his own, or Esther, or any other, Moses or Noah, or, nobody thought they could do it on their own. But there's no but to that. But here's the other part. I understand you need to have folks alongside you. And so we've heard, and you've heard that this country was won with 3% of the population. You're like, no way. But if you actually dial it in and you think about it, the thousands of men that fought for this country back then against one of the most powerful fighting forces in this world, we had 50% of our population, or whatever the population was, that was still, fighting for the king. They wanted a king. They thought it was good stuff. They didn't care about taxes. They didn't care about how the king had ultimate power over this country. And then there was the 3% that stepped up. And if you really look at it, it's quite possible it was just 3% that was out there fighting for nothing other than freedom. And so when I get down there, I've been asked, would you be on the Freedom Caucus if you were invited? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely be on the Freedom Caucus. But I'm going to tell you something, that I haven't really said to anybody else. I look at that 3% number. There's 435 House members, right? If I could get down there, the first thing I get down there is I start meeting people, and I find those warriors that are going to get elected in right now. And I find them, and I find 3% of them. I find 12 others of like mind, like me, that want nothing more than to just serve this country, come in, serve it, fix it, and go home and get back to their own business and their businesses and everything else. I will find them. And that 3% is 13. And I think that's a good number. So I'm going to have I don't know, we got to come up with a cool name for it or something. I don't know, but it's going to be much better than the squad or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
We have 13 people that are truly down there to serve, to speak and seek the truth. Think about that. 3%.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts.
That's where it would start. So first thing down there, find other seekers and speakers of the truth. It's going to be hard. Okay. But I think it'll be easy at the same time.
Yeah, and I think heading into November, we've been saying that we're going to see this red tsunami, and I'm hoping it's like-minded patriots, America First agenda-minded individuals come November, and we'll have more, and that's what we want. We want more of those like-minded individuals down there in the House, and partnering people like Daniel Burton to really push through the freedom-loving American dream agenda.
Here's the issue. The only concern I have right now is the establishment is pushing hard for their folks whose turn it is, as opposed to the ones that are really standing up. I mean, we just saw what the GOP tried to do against Doug Mastriano. Whether you like Doug Mastriano or not, listeners, if you're listening to all the garbage that's going around, because it is garbage amongst all of those candidates, okay? But what the GOP just tried to do by having all of the candidates back out and throw support behind one other candidate other than Doug is abysmal. I'm glad it blew up in their face.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad it blew up in their face. At least we got Jake off the ballot, because that guy is the main reason why we didn't have an audit in the state to begin with, and why we're at where we're at.
Yeah. Their actions show what they are. They are subservient to another master, and they're doing his bidding.
Absolutely. So you're either good or evil. Silence in the face of that evil, riding the fence in between, means you're siding with evil. You don't want to call yourself that, but if you allow things to happen, you're just as bad as the evil that is perpetrating it. Okay. That's, the worst analogy, the mom allowing the stepdad to abuse the kids. Okay. Yeah. Who do you get more mad at? The one that's abusing it, the one that's doing the criminal actions, or the one that's allowing it and hiding it and just sitting there knowing it's happening and allowing it to happen? And so that's why I can't decide if I'm more upset with Republicans or the Democrats, because the Republicans are the ones that are allowing it to happen and doing nothing about it.
So what is the future of the GOP?
Well, in my travels, I mean, you can look at it. It used to be the Whigs, right? Mm-hmm. I believe, if I'm historically. So when Lincoln came around, that's when the Republican Party started, because the Whigs went too far a direction. It was a uniparty situation again. And I'm not saying we need to recreate a new party, but we certainly need to redo our current establishment, because it's all about money now. It has nothing, money and power. That's what both parties are. And that's why you see a lot of people out there saying the uniparty. Well, it's because that's all it is. It's not about you or I or the grassroots or the folks that are truly working for a living and trying to support a family and pursuing their own happiness. It's about money and power.
Yeah.
And that's what it's always been throughout history. And when we allow that, when we go to be served for money and power, instead of going to serve and make it better and try to do your job to make everyone's life easier so they can make their own lives better, that's where it is. So what's the future of the GOP? Right now, in my travels around it, just specifically these couple counties, Montgomery and Berks County, there's a lot of people waking up and a lot of folks not happy with establishment.
They're upsetting people.
I can talk about Montgomery County GOP. Berks County seems, they're short a couple hundred people in their committee. But they're doing a pretty decent. At least they're following their own bylaws. They're trying to do this. Montgomery County is breaking their own bylaws. They're out there touting election integrity, and that we need elections. But then they're breaking their own internal election bylaws, and they're having faulty elections in their own bylaws for their endorsed candidates. They did the same. They did it to me. Okay, so
they're not changing their ways. Story. They're making their ways worse.
So it's not America first. It's establishment first. Yeah. And they tout it as America first, and they speak a great game, but it's all about establishment first. And so what they're doing about me, and I just, I know I've talked a lot here today, so I want to make sure I at least hit on what they're trying to hit me with and why they say I shouldn't even be running in the race. Okay. So, if you're okay with that, I'll jump to that, because this is where
it's a topic. There's a lot of people in your area or in the area here, are concerned about and want to know about. So,
right. And so first, this is what I've been talking about this whole time we've been on the phone or on the podcast here. We are destroying ourselves from within. We're trying to put our establishment first candidates forward because they're the ones that we can either control, or they're the ones that want to be in control and want to be served, right? So, or they put the most money or the most viable candidate because they've raised the most money. It has nothing to do with people. It's all about money and power, like I said. And so I felt called to serve this great country again. And I felt called to serve in Congressional District 4 after the government drawn lines were made. Okay. So I've been a candidate since last April. I filed as a United States congressional candidate last April, but I filed as District 00 because I knew the lines were going to change. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know where I was going to be drawn into a district. I didn't know what was going to happen. As soon as the lines were finalized, that's when I filed as Congressional District 4. So people come to me, why haven't you been out there for a year? I have been out there for a year. I've been out talking to people. I've been out messaging. I've been out doing all these things as a candidate. Just didn't know where the government was going to make our lines. And so Congressional District 4 opened up and the lines came around and they carved out this weird thing and they came into Berks County because Ford never actually came into Berks County. It was always just Montgomery County. And now it's about 50 to 60% of the landmass of Berks County too.
Which includes
me.
So
now I find myself, what's that?
Which includes me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got knocked out.
Yeah. So Josh here
I went to District 1.
Unfortunately booted from you.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got an establishment guy.
I was going to say that's a whole nother podcast topic we can get into.
Yes,
right?
it is. So hopefully get Alex on. Get Alex on. Who's going against it. So to answer the question briefly here, I have managed businesses. I've had hundreds of accounts across Montgomery and Berks County for many years. I still have customers in those counties. Okay. I served in the Marine Corps. My unit was in Berks County 20 some years ago. Okay. Berks and Montgomery counties have been a portion of my foundational beginning as a young kid in his 20s, growing up, figuring out the business world, figuring out the world in general. Okay. And so the argument is that how can you vote for Dan because he doesn't live in the district? Well, when those government lines were drawn, I just want to make sure that you guys understand these were government drawn lines that overnight the lines changed and who is representing you, just like Josh was saying, now you're in a completely different district. Now 60% of Berks County is going to be represented by a far left Madeline Dean if I don't have any say in it. Okay. And I'm like, no, not today. And so I live probably 10 miles or just about 10 miles outside of the district. Okay. I live a mile and a half or so right outside of Berks County. So I'm in northern Lancaster County. So when you see the ballot, it says Lancaster on there because you got to put where the county that you're from. I don't live in the district. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to serve the same. It doesn't mean I'm going to serve the people any different. I have a history of Berks and Montgomery County that goes back, I don't know, close to 20 years. Okay, or actually 25 years because it was in the 90s when I was serving in Berks County with the Marine Corps. So I am no different just because the argument they're making against me is like saying, turning the police officer away at your front door when a criminal's breaking in your back door because he lives in a town next door instead of in the same street as you. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So there's the moral argument I have with this whole thing. The ethical argument I have with this is it's not illegal. Okay. It is perfectly fine. There's a large percentage of our current federal politicians that don't live in their district. I don't even think nobody even knows where Madeline Dean lives. She may not even live in the district anymore. She sold her house a couple of years ago. So nobody really knows where she lives. They know she has a house in Cape May, New Jersey. They know that she has a house somewhere. So I don't even think she may not even live in the district.
Yeah, there's probably nothing in the writing that said, if you live in the district and then, does that mean if you get elected, you're not allowed to move? I seriously doubt that.
Exactly.
So,
and you can do all of those things. They're so right. And so Dan, just rent an apartment. What is that going to do? That's just facilitating a lie. I literally live 15 minutes. Are you telling me that you don't want a warrior to go serve you because he lives his work drive is 15 minutes?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're representing Pennsylvania down there. So, and you're representing all of America down there. So at the end of the day, does that really?
I don't think so.
Disqualify
the candidates that I have.
No, it doesn't.
The candidates that I have to choose from, you are the candidate that best fills my voice. I want to be heard in Washington. So it doesn't matter to me if you live outside of the district. Obviously you can't live out of the state, but I'm just looking for the best person for the job, which is a topic, or that's a principle we don't adhere to anymore in this country.
Yeah, and not that we can vote.
So that's why it doesn't matter that you don't live outside the district from me. And I hope people listening make their own opinion too. Who's my best voice?
Just because the government drew a line doesn't mean that I'm a different person and that I won't serve this country with my dying breath. Just because they decided to draw a line here instead of here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like saying we don't want Berks County to be part of Congressional District 4 anymore. Well, the government did that. If you don't like that, then stand up and vote and get into office, get into the state house, because they're the ones that did this.
Yeah.
And state races, you have to live within your district. And that's why we see evilly how they put 12 districts against each other, Republicans. So we cut down to 6, right? So we have 12 Republicans going against each other in this election. And then they cut 6 cities in half to make 6 new seats in cities. And unfortunately, because the Republicans neglect going into cities because they don't think they're winnable, normally they get won by Democrats. So there's a lot of conservative people in those cities that we just neglect. So that's Republican problem too. Okay.
Yeah.
But we're giving 6 more seats to the Democrats, and we're losing 6 seats over here. So that's 12 total swing. And we only hold the House by like 13 in the state.
Yeah.
And we hold the House and the Senate in Pennsylvania. And we allowed that to happen. So who's really at fault? That's Corman. That's Cutler. That's all these people that are doing this. And it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So to your point, I will serve this country and all Americans, regardless of where you live, because I love it, because I love God, my family, and I want the future for my kids that they deserve. And because you live across the street or somewhere else doesn't mean I'm going to serve you any different. Just like what I said about stopping on the side of the street and helping you. You don't ask a military veteran where they're from before you thank them for their service, because they went to serve this country regardless of where they were from and regardless of where you were from. And they went to serve others in the entire world. And because the government drew a line that carved me out of a district or didn't get me into the district that I feel where the battle is, that I need to go serve the folks that I have a foundation with of my entire life, because I love Montgomery and Berks County and what it provided for me. That's just, unfortunately, just a ruse to try to get somebody else in power into the office, because they're the endorsed candidate, which they broke their own bylaws doing, and it's their turn next. And it's like sending a warrior back to the pasture when you're about to fight Goliath.
Hopefully people can figure this out and make their own educated decision on who they want to represent them and why they want that person as a representative.
Yeah. And so, Dan, any last words for the listeners out there, for your voting block, for the undecided voting block, that majority of independent voters? Any last words for them?
I am incredibly humbled and honored. And if I am blessed to be able to serve this country again, it would be the greatest blessing of my life. And the folks that are out there helping and door knocking and getting the word out there and that are fighting alongside this warrior, I'm incredibly honored to call them warriors alongside of me, just like you guys. I know you guys are fighting too. And we need everyone to stand and ask themselves, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? You all feel it. We're all better at something than our neighbor. And that's a good thing, because if we're going to get back to the community, we all need to support each other, and we need to help each other, and we need to stand together. And though I say I'm the tip of the spear and I will stand between you and the evil's intended target, I will attack it. But I am just one part of that spear. There's a lot other parts. And you guys and everyone else that's listening to this podcast need to really ask themselves, what part of the spear am I? And how can I stand up in this fight? And then we need to put on the armor of God and understand that evil is trying to take our country every single moment. Everything that we see and everything that we don't see that they're doing behind the scenes is coming after us. And we need to stand up and do something about it. And again, my name is Daniel Burton. I'm running to serve this country again. I'm running for Congressional District 4 for U.S. House. I'm the second person on the ballot under Congressional District 4. So if you look at the ballot when it comes out, I'll be the second. I'm the second line. There's only 2 of us. But I will tell you that I will serve this country with my dying breath. And I pray that it doesn't get to that point. But I will do so, because this is how much I love my country and how much I love my family and how much I love the Lord above. And this is what we need to do. And for such a time as this, we need to have faith over fear, because it's not all doom and gloom. I know truth sounds hard, and all the truth that we were speaking today sounds like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do about it? And we put some fear in some hearts. And I don't want that, because God provides. Shoes didn't wear out for 40 years when they were walking through the wilderness, right? We have the food. There are battles upon us, but we win the war. But we just can't sit down and let the war go on. We have to fight those battles before we win the war. And that's what we're called to do. And so stand up, stand tall, put on the armor of God, and have faith over fear, and smile in the face of the enemy, because we win.
I love that. Well, there you have it. Get out and vote Tuesday, May 17th. Daniel Burton, congressional candidate for the Commonwealth's 4th District. Thank you again, Dan, for everything you're doing. Keep that warrior spirit alive. It was a pleasure having you on the show. And you know what?
The pleasure was all mine.
Continue to love freedom, believe in freedom, defend that freedom. Freedom's everything. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We appreciate you for listening to this episode of the Light of Liberty podcast. Please help us share the truth and restore the freedom. Follow us on Twitter at Light of 1776 and listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio.